Let's say you're rushing out the door. You bump the kitchen table, and a cup of coffee tips over, spilling across the wood. That 5-minute delay to clean it up means you miss your usual train. You take the next one, you sit next to a stranger, and 3 years later, you marry them. We spend hours agonizing over our 5-year career paths, our financial milestones, and exactly when we want to settle down. We build these elaborate schedules to convince ourselves we are in the driver's seat. But if a tipped mug can alter the entire course of your life, how much of your story is actually written by your careful planning, and how much is just a blind roll of the dice? The Argentine writer Jorge Luis Borges explored this exact tension. He imagined a society that looked at the randomness of the universe, abandoned the illusion of planning entirely, and decided to institutionalize chaos. He set his story in a version of Babylon that functions as a thought experiment, a world where a mandatory society-wide lottery dictates the reality of every single citizen. By watching how these citizens willingly surrender their lives to an extreme game of chance, we can uncover some very uncomfortable truths about our own desperate need for control in a random universe. In Borges' story, the Babylonian lottery didn't start out as a life-or-death system. It began as a rather boring, unpopular game where people bought tickets hoping to win a few silver coins. This animated scale shows how the organizers saved the failing system. They introduced a new binary risk. On one side, you still had the chance to win silver. On the other, they added a few unlucky tickets that forced the buyer to pay a hefty fine. Keep watching the penalty side of the scale. When players lost, they actually refused to pay the money, choosing to go to jail instead to defraud the organizers. Overnight, this transformed the lottery from a simple financial transaction into a gamble for physical freedom. The poorer citizens watched the wealthy enjoy the thrill of this risk and demanded equal access to the game. They staged a massive, indignant uprising. The result was a new social order where the lottery became secret, free, and absolutely mandatory for everyone. The stakes were raised to match the new system. Drawing a winning ticket might mean waking up to find political power or the partner of your dreams waiting in your room. A losing ticket could mean public disgrace, mutilation, or even death. By letting the drawings encompass all human experiences, the Babylonians effectively erased personal agency. They traded the burden of personal responsibility for the absolute surrender to chance. To manage this vast society-wide game, the Babylonians believed in the existence of the company, a shadowy, omnipotent, and completely invisible organization. But executing a specific fate across an entire population creates a massive logistical nightmare. If the lottery decrees the murder of a specific citizen, the organizers have to perfectly coordinate the time, the location, and the person holding the weapon. This diagram shows how they solved the problem: infinite subdrawings. A primary drawing decrees an outcome, which then splits into 9 secondary drawings to determine the executors, which then immediately branch out again to decide the most minute specific details of how it happens. As the tree expands, you can see how the result of one single drawing can be intensified, delayed, or entirely canceled by the next. It creates an endless, inescapable web of possibilities, where tracking a single outcome becomes impossible. Borges notes that rumors of these bizarre, randomized punishments even echoed out to other ancient empires, allegedly inspiring the Roman Emperor Elagabalus to hand out dinner lots that rewarded guests with either 10 pounds of gold or 10 bears. The company's influence subtly bleeds into every corner of daily life. A scribe drafting a contract might insert an intentional error, or a buyer of wine might find a snake at the bottom of the jar, ensuring no citizen ever feels fully safe or settled. Because of these endless subdrawings, the people of Babylon believe no event is isolated. Whether it's a bird's call or a sudden death, they accept every tiny moment of their lives as a direct command from an unreachable authority. But towards the end of the story, the narrator shares a blasphemous secret whispered in the twilight. There are rumors among the masked citizens that the company hasn't actually existed for centuries. Then he shares an even more terrifying heresy. Some reason that the company never existed at all, and it never will. The implication here is that Babylon isn't governed by a meticulous bureaucracy. The highly organized lottery system they worship is actually just the natural, chaotic randomness of the universe, operating exactly as it always does. The citizens invented the company as a psychological shield. It is vastly easier for the human mind to accept terrible punishment from an organized system, even a cruel one, than to face the truth of meaningless, unguided chaos. We do the exact same thing today. Whenever we try to find a reason behind a sudden illness or credit fate, karma, or the universe for a lucky break, we are just inventing our own modern versions of the company. Rather than being bleak, accepting the pure randomness of life can actually be incredibly freeing. It releases us from the exhausting burden of trying to find a grand moral meaning or a personal failure in every single accident or misfortune. We cannot control the cosmic scratch-off ticket we are handed at birth, but recognizing life as a game of chance gives us permission to forgive ourselves for our bad luck and simply be grateful for the good.